Hey, everybody, welcome to Inside D2 Football. We are here to recap a pretty exciting week 3 and then also look ahead to a busy week in week number 4. Guys, I think coming into this weekend, we didn't necessarily have a thrilling looking schedule, but we ended up getting some pretty amazing results that are really going to shake up probably the bottom quarter of our top 25. And also throw some of the conference races into a wrench. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Sorry we are a few minutes late. We had a few last-minute things to get resolved before we could get going tonight, but we are happy to be here with you for Inside D2 Football. So along with Matt Witwicky, Tony Nicolette, and Chris Ferguson, I am Chuck Bittner. Our friend Coach Palizzi is traveling again this week, so he is unable to join. But we've got the rest of us here to talk you through everything that happened yesterday in a pretty exciting week 3, and actually a little bit on Thursday night as well. So with that said, Whit, why don't we roll into it here and bring up the presentation, or bring up the slides. And we're going to start, as we always do, with a recap of some of the top games from this past week. And Whit, I think for the second week in a row, going to your home conference and also involving the UMD Bulldogs. Both teams coming into this game 3-0. 34-17 final. That actually feels a little closer than the game really was, doesn't it?
Yeah. This game was 28 zip at halftime and 250 yards for Duluth at half. And they had some short fields, took advantage of them, and then just a whole lot of Kyle Waljasper and company, and USF really struggled to sustain drives. Cam Dean, their quarterback, ends up getting 2 interceptions along the way. Let's go ahead and roll the video here, Chuck. I was there in person. Some of this is WIT video, so feel free to knock it. But Coach Glow brings the group on out there, and USF not able to go ahead and mount much early, and you go ahead and you see Mr. Waljasper takes a big shot here, but he gets up like it ain't no thing. And Sioux Falls driving here. Cam Dean kind of throws to no one in particular on that one. And this ends up going the other direction. And they're already down 7-0. And Duluth's got the ball now right around the 30-yard line. Now we got a tush push. And gets on in. And it's 14-0. USF's in trouble first quarter big time. Fake punt by Duluth on 4th and 3 at midfield. They keep the ball and they score. This is the kind of afternoon Cam Dean had, back to pass, and just gets labeled right there. And Duluth bringing pressures from a lot of different looks. By this point, we get a little bit later in the contest. USF was able to get some points on the board here. Bennett Brick, backup quarterback, comes on and gets a score, but a little too late on all of this. And 34-17, it made it sound a whole lot closer than the 28-0 that I was feeling at halftime. And I'll be honest, Chuck, I thought I was going to go see a really good ball game. And I talked with Coach Kurt Wiese of UMD afterwards. He couldn't be happier about how this is the best his team has performed against Sioux Falls since he's been the head coach. That's how this performance was. And just really one-sided. Really fast UMD defense, and they were able to establish their line of scrimmage with their run game. And I talked a little bit with Coach Glow afterwards from Sioux Falls, and I'm just going to say he didn't really see this coming. So this was a pretty shocking result.
Yeah, no doubt. And Whit, I know, looking at the final stats and looking at the box, it looks a lot more even than it really was. Was a lot of that offensive productivity for the Cougs? Was that really kind of after it was already too late and they're playing catch up?
Yeah, they had 150 yards at halftime, Chuck, and with a few turnovers. And Duluth at that point was pretty much in the second half. They scored their first trip down, and it was 34 Goose. And it was like, okay, this game's over with. And Kyle Waljasper was out of the football game before the end of the third quarter. So that tells you what you need to know right there.
Were there any fantasy implications in Waljasper coming out of the game that early?
I mean, nah. I mean, though he did most of his damage on the ground. I mean, that always adds up.
Yeah, only 4 scores, right? But they just UMD looked like, I mean, last week we thought that result probably could have been a bigger difference in the points between them and Mankato with 3 points there, but yet it felt like Duluth had kind of dominated the game. This was a matter of Duluth dominated the game, and USF got a lot of late yards, and sometimes those yards end up being empty in a football game, and this is a good example of that.
Yeah. So Bulldogs actually, remember, coming into last week, were unranked. We brought them into the poll. Now, maybe we were a little bit late on getting them into the top 25, but they made a big jump, guys, going from unranked all the way to 11. Don't know that they move a whole lot higher than that this week, just because I don't think, Matt, you and I were talking earlier today, I don't think anybody in the top 15 lost. So it probably land in that same spot, but still pretty impressive couple of weeks for the Bulldogs.
No doubt about it. Chuck, moving into our next game here, I'll let you kind of put the ball on the tee and we'll go from there, buddy.
Yeah, you mentioned talking to Coach Glow, and he said he didn't really see this coming. I think heading into this, I did not see this coming. Looking back on it, it makes a little bit more sense. LR was a little hamstrung in this. They had no Kamani Robinson. He had kind of been knocked out of the game the week before. I believe it's probably a head injury. So he was held out of this game, did not play. LJ Turner didn't play in this game either. And man, it just really took all the pop out of Lenore Ryan offense. Now, to be fair, Carson Newman played extremely well defensively.
Yeah.
He really kept LR's quarterbacks unsettled. They tried a couple of different things, and Carson Newman just really wasn't having it. They played a great defensive football game, and this was a big win for them. Remember, they're coming off the disappointing loss to Mars Hill. Really kind of felt like the rest of their season kind of hinged on getting a big win, getting a signature win. I think they really got it here, Whit. I mean, we kind of wrote them off after last week, I think, a little bit, as probably a team that probably didn't belong in the top 25. And now they're right back here knocking on the door again saying, hey, some other teams took a loss. We're still here. This is a big dub for us. So, I think offensively, Carson Newman was also able to do a few things that was just keeping Lenore Ryan a little off balance. The Eagles offense is a lot of fun to watch when they're at full strength. Now, they actually have a few guys out with injury too, but when they're at full strength, guys, they are a lot of fun to watch because, they're not just a triple option offense. I think a lot of people have that perception because Coach Ingram came from the Naval Academy.
Right.
It's a very intricate offense, and they give you a ton of different looks to prepare for. They do a lot of 4 wides. And yes, there's triple option in there.
Right.
There's, Service Academy football baked into this offense as well. But it's a very interesting offense to watch. And I think Lenore Ryan needed more from their offense to keep their defense off the field a little bit. So really good showing here for the Eagles to get a win at home. I think it was their first win at home over Lenore Ryan in something like 12, 13 years. So it's
Yeah,
really
and
good.
you know what? I'm going to throw on some video to kind of speak to what you were getting at a moment ago, Chuck. Not only the offensive side, but with Carson Newman, you see them, Lenore Ryan's got the football here early, trying to make a play, and Carson Newman gets an interception. And then moments, later, they get they get back at him with another sack. And Carson Newman, I haven't seen their defense play quite like this. And as you were mentioning, Chuck, they got a lot of stuff going on offensively where they spread the field really nicely. And this team, and they only have thrown 9 passes, but 7 of them connect. And then you're going to see right here Zane Whitson, who's kind of a little bit more of a long striding quarterback, gets loose right there. And then not a good fit right here by Lenore Ryan, and he gets loose again. And he outruns everybody. And you go ahead and you see this team's got it doesn't feel, Chuck, like you mentioned, like full-blown triple option. They're doing a little everything. And I thought this was a really nice win for them. After I thought last year, we kind of felt like they limped to the finish a bit. And then their loss last week, we weren't sure, okay, is that kind of back? But, as I move along, Tony, let's unpack a little bit of this. I mean, I think maybe we could have seen Carson Newman, but not necessarily like this.
Well, I'm still hung up on Lenore Ryan just being that ineffectual. And I don't mean to take away from Carson Newman. I think they did a great job. But these are a couple of performances now and in the early part of the season from Lenore Ryan. And I get that they were, when you don't have your starting quarterback, that's going to hamper you quite a bit. But, Lenore Ryan kind of came into this game a little bit hamstrung, and Carson Newman did the job. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Eagles in that regard. But to me, I just thought Lenore Ryan basically kind of not showing up is what it looked like and what it felt like. That's the thing that surprised me the most. And again, I'm not. It's tough for me because I don't want to be overly critical of 20-year-old kids, but at the same time, they just looked flat. They didn't look like they were ready to go.
They did.
Well, guys, as we go ahead and we move through, Chuck, our next game, a little bit of GAC action here. Harding, Southern Arkansas.
Yeah, so, we kind of thought that this was going to be the first real test of the season for Harding because, well, it is. I don't know what to really make of this. I think there's some things that you could look at, guys, to say Southern Arkansas had a little bit of success here. You look at the numbers, they were able to move the ball pretty well. I guess Harding has just been so dominant against most of this league that, I just expect them to be able to roll through everyone.
Right.
And it wasn't necessarily the case here. I mean, it was scoreless at the end of the first quarter. I think it was, 10-0 or close to 10-0 heading towards the half. And I think maybe that's when they got one more score. So I guess I want to look at it and say, well, maybe it wasn't as dominant as it should be. But the reality is they beat a good team on the road by 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So, this is still a really good win for Harding. They did a lot of the things that they're known for. No passing yards, but 433 yards on the ground against a very good Southern Arkansas football team. Now, on the other hand, the Mule Riders did throw the ball a little bit. So, it kind of feels a little bit like the unpacking we did with Tiffin against Ferris, right? Tiffin had some success moving the ball. Does that indicate that Ferris has some problems? Probably not. And I think it's going to be the same here as well. Southern Arkansas had a little bit of success, but, Harding's not going to hold everyone to, under 200 yards of offense. So I think at the end of the day, this is still a very impressive win for the Bisons.
I think that's the challenge that we have is that they've kind of set their own standard in such a way where we're looking at this like, well, they didn't blow them out. And I don't think we're wrong in that way. That's just kind of the standard they've set. Now let's take a look a little bit at their offense and kind of what we have with some Harding highlights here. And those, there's going to load up any moment. I guarantee you. We went it. There we are. Whoops. They went so fast. There we go. Christian Franklin, brand new name in the Harding offense, getting some touches, gets a score right there. And, as we're going ahead and we're watching some of the action, Cole Keelan still at quarterback for him, Braden J. Here's Cole Keelan right here. He has a knack of just finding the end zone when they need it in a play like that. Chuck, like you mentioned, low scoring game up until this point. You see, Southern Arkansas trying to make some plays, but Harding's always got a good secondary. They always do a real good job of getting to the football. And there's no Blake Delacruz from last year. Well, it's just his replacement who kind of came on real good last year, Andrew Miller, a little bit of a bigger back. Maybe not the same guy to run away quite as much, but they still have this guy, Braden J, to do that, and a little whoop. And he's so impressive with the way he can do that with his longer runs and be a real home run hitter in this offense. And he had so much fun on that run. He decides that he's going to do another one. And it's just basically the same play. And he's like, get off me. And 20's got a chance to get him, but maybe not. And this is just kind of Harding doing their thing. And I think that this was good for Harding, that this wasn't a runaway game, that they got tested, at least in this first half. I never felt like they were in trouble in this game, but at the same time, they had to have focus throughout a lot more of this game than they've had to have in some of these other contests where things are kind of over by the end of the first quarter. But guys, one thing I want to point out, the names that are mentioned on the Harding side here, Cole Keelan, Andrew Miller, Braden Jay, Clark Griffin, Ty Duggar. Those are a whole lot of guys who have been pretty effective for them. And we've said those names for a few years now. And that's kind of where we're at with this team. I feel like I feel like their time is now. Now, Ferg, in watching them here, I mean, they just feel like their offense is right back, like they haven't missed a beat, like we're ready for the playoffs right now, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, the offense is rolling right now. And the depth that you just mentioned, like, that's a big deal because that's, we just talked about, the Lenore Ryan game and depth that's not there. But in someone like Harding, they got a number of guys that can step up on any given night. I just want to really briefly mention too that, like, when looking at teams that Harding's already played and watching some of those teams play like other folks in the GAC, like, I'm thinking about like Southwestern Oklahoma, for example, and how they did really well in their game. It's like, man, but Harding just shut them down, and that defense, it's just on another level as well. So I think that it's also about that defense that also got 8 tackles for loss against Southern Arkansas. So, I think there's certainly two sides of the coin. They just look like such a complete team right now.
Well, and it always seems like that's the side that people don't, when they think of Harding, they have the vision of them running the triple and the way they do. But I'll never forget being at the championship when they played Colorado Mines. And as much as their offense was a story, their defense was a whole lot of the story. So,
yeah, for sure. James added this comment. I think overall, this is probably true. They still have a ways to go, but the standard that they had set, the last couple of years was just so high that the drop off is still really, really good. They're very impressive on defense. So also I want to mention, huge crowd at that game. They had almost 7,000 in attendance, standing room only,
That's
overflow crowd. So that was really cool to see. And, again, just added to the challenge for Harding. So, but congrats to everyone in Magnolia for putting on a great event for this game. All right, let's stick in the GAC here, guys. Arkansas Tech, we doubted a little bit just because, the competition in those first 2 games, not great. Well, they went to Arkadelphia and got a really nice win. What a homecoming there for Coach Thompson going back to Arkadelphia. The Wonder Boys scored in all 4 quarters, and this is probably one of the more competitive and even games of the whole weekend. So, what do you have to unpack here for us?
Well, I know I was cheering on the television quite a bit last night after. I was hoping to take a victory lap that I'll be taking here.
He's got gloating to unpack. That's what
Right.
Far be it from me to gloat. You guys know me. Come on now.
Pretty much, we do know you. That's right.
But no, I was cheering this game on for Arkansas Tech, given my pick. Let's watch a little bit of the video here. By the way, quarterback Jack Dawson. That name sounds familiar. He was a starter at Fort Hays for years. And I'm glad to see him get another opportunity here. Fumbles his way into not fumbles, but kind of a tough run there. And then we've got a free throw. A ball thrown into the end zone there for a score for Ouachita. And then Ouachita gets something going here with a nice shot there. Nate Tenbarge hits one downfield. This is a lot more of a throwing OBU team, and I'm not sure that's a great thing because they've been so good on the run last few years. But then Tech gets a touchdown right before half on the fade. Very well done right there, and we're tied up at halftime. Very interesting matchup here. And then you go ahead and you see Dominic Feliciano comes on in, and he is kind of their wildcat quarterback that they use at the goal. Then a tip ball here for a pick, and all of a sudden, it's like a standing 8 count going on here for Ouachita. And then Dominic comes on again, goes ahead, wildcat, and scores again. and that's it. And Tech with a huge upset here. I mean, this is guys, I'll tell you what makes me excited about this is we now have another team that's kind of interest or in the mix, competitive in the GAC. This is a challenge that we've had in the GAC, guys. I would love to see another squad that could be playoff worthy, because it's been a lot of, Wichita, Henderson, Harding, and who else has made the playoffs in the recent, years. And so this to me is exciting to see a team like this being upstart the way they are.
Yeah, for sure. And I believe that Tech plays Harding in the last week of the regular season. So, man, if they can keep this going, it could be a really fun game there at the end of the year.
Oh, hell, by that time they'll be unbeatable. So we're rocking.
Well, as long as you keep rolling with them. Yep. All right,
guys. The whole Washita situation, though, I don't think we can move off this game without
let's
really
unpack
talking
that
about
for a minute. That's a good point, Tony.
Right? So I think you're dead on, with the fact that it just doesn't seem like the run game is there for Washita so far this year. Obviously, for them to have lost a pair this early in the season is concerning. But then again, there's always the transitive property of football is always a slippery slope. But gosh, they lost to East Central. And East Central dumped a game to Southern Nazarene. So it's like you're looking at Washita going, I'm not sure what they are. And for a team that we had ranked in the top 15 to start the season, this is I'd be very concerned in Arkadelphia at what the direction of the rest of this season is going to look like. What are they building towards here? Where are they going to go?
Well, I'm sure things will improve dramatically because they have the Bisons next week. But we'll get to that.
And this could have been a trap, I suppose. But boy, we're gonna learn. We're gonna learn real quick.
Berg, what were your thoughts, buddy?
Well, I was just gonna say, kind of when you talk about going from a running team to a passing team, I mean that typically affects teams when they get inside the 20. And for Washita, this is a one-score game, and they had an opportunity to score in the red zone and they didn't. And so things like that. Passing teams struggling inside the 20, inside the red zone, it's a big deal here. So they got to get better trying to punch it in, especially with that run game soon, because the schedule gets a lot tougher from here.
Yep,
absolutely does. Well, that'll take us through the top 4 games. That's kind of the goal we have, is to give you a deep dive on 3 to 4 games where we've got some highlights and do a little bit more of an extensive inspection of those games. But we have a bunch of others that we want to get to. K-Ferg, the weekend started on Thursday with Tuskegee going to Benedict. I watched most of this game, and man, it was really interesting how Benedict was able to turn this around, because early on, man, it looked like Tuskegee was going to have the upper hand, and before you know it, Benedict just completely flipped the script on him.
Yeah, they did, and it was really surprising to see that. And there's a notable name at quarterback for Benedict, Darius Ocean, previously at stops such as Johnson C. Smith last year and a couple other places too. But inserting him into the offense and not having to rely on Trey Simmons at quarterback and let him play more of that wide receiver position has really made a big difference here. And, the way they turned it on in the second quarter, I mean, they just didn't look back. They just hit the accelerator. Now you've got this, tantalizing scenario where, Benedict is now 3-0, and the SIAC just feels really wide open now, with some really good quality teams this year.
Yeah, no doubt. Really good win for them. And yeah, to your point, though, just beyond that, just a really impressive showing. Kind of puts the rest of the SIC on notice. How about to your home league? This was kind of the spotlight game that we had. Both teams ranked. And you did point out that in years past that number 25 ranking has been a bit of a curse. Maybe Virginia Union broke the curse here.
Yeah, and I picked them to win this game. I mean, generally, VU typically bounces back pretty well. And I was a little worried because, JCSU, they rose to the occasion, against Valdosta, but then they sort of kind of played it down to Elizabeth City. I was kind of worried, like, what kind of team are you going to get here? And they really came out flat against Virginia Union. And it wasn't necessarily that Curtis Allen ran all over them. But yeah, he got 4 touchdowns and over 100 yards. But I mean, those are very hard fought yards. But VU just made big plays when they needed to, especially getting the ball, pushing the ball downfield. And they just slowly built up that lead, and it just became more and more insurmountable for the Golden Bulls.
Yep, really great recovery there for the Panthers. To the PSAC, Slippery Rock, no trouble there with a struggling Shippensburg team. I think the takeaway there is I believe that they have probably resolved a new direction for quarterback at the Rock. They made that change last week in just enough time to salvage that game and pull out the win over Shippensburg. And guys, I think that they probably have a new direction there at quarterback. No trouble there at all. We mentioned Clarion last week. Here they are again. They are 4-0, absolutely rolled. Now, Shepherd obviously did put up a fight there. You see there's a ton of offense. Clarion had over 600 yards. I think Shepherd had about 530. So all kinds of offense going on there. I'll tell you a name to be aware of if you follow the PSAC in Super Region 1. Anthony Gershiro, the quarterback at Clarion, he is having one heck of a season there for the Golden Eagles, as are many other players on that team. And they roll to a 4-0 start. So congrats to them. We were going to have Coach Poe give us a little bit of his take on these games. He was not able to join. I will tell you that West Florida game got pretty dramatic at the end. I was able to catch just a little bit of that on a replay this morning. North Greenville actually tossed a touchdown pass on the last play of regulation. Ball that was caught in the back corner of the end zone. Unfortunately, the quarterback's knee was ruled down before the pass came out, and they did not have the opportunity then to go for a 2-point play. So a little bit of a narrow escape there for the Argos, but they do get the win on the road. And Delta State, I believe they trailed for a good bit of that game, but they pull it out at the end over a tough Fort Valley State team. So good bounce back win there for Delta State. Whit, the game there with Fort Hays and Pitt State, I think we all thought this was going to be a really close battle. The Gorillas end up getting a 2-score victory out of this. Tell us a little bit of how it played it out. Did Pitt really look like the better team in this one? Was it any closer than that score?
Well, Fort Hays was up 13-10 at half, and then a little bit of the Luke Negaman show kicks in. He had that kind of costly fumble a week ago against Grand Valley at the goal. This time he ends up having 3 scores, and they're able to go ahead and also connect on a long pass. And it just feels like this Pitt team, we've been kind of talking about this. It feels like they have the ability to be a little bit more dynamic offensively. At the same time, their defense holds Fort Hays to 16 points. This is a pretty impressive win when you think about it, because this Fort Hays team, we had them in the top 25 for a reason. And I'm not sure that Fort Hays isn't the top 25 team still, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. But, Pitt all of a sudden now is at 2-2, and I think that they've kind of got their stride.
Schedule gets a heck of a lot easier here too coming up.
You guys think? I mean, to that point, Tony. I mean, coming out of that brutal stretch to start the year, they come out of it 2-2.
Yep.
And they've got momentum on their side. So I feel like that's right. That's kind of a win for them.
And then on the other side, Chuck, I think a lot of people were a little surprised by Missouri Southern playing Northwest that close. Missouri Southern's got a nice quarterback running back combo. And you know what? They're playing some defense, and this game was tight, and Northwest has been scoring some points. So if you're Northwest, it's a little survive and advance, but at the same time, Missouri Southern feels like maybe one of those teams in the bottom portion of that conference who has the ability to kind of punch with some of the mid or upper level. We'll have to see as the season continues.
Yeah, they've played good ball. How about Chad State with a huge win over Colorado School of Mines. They were so excited to announce that they won that they got the score wrong. It was actually 34-28, but nonetheless, at that point, who cares about the score? Chad State gets a huge victory at home over Mines. There were a few points during that game where the Eagles had a chance to kind of blow it open. There was, I think, at least 2 points where they were kind of on the doorstep of making that like a 17-point game. Mines was able to create a turnover that kind of swung things back in their favor, but the Eagles do get the big win. First in, I think, about 12, 13 years, something like that, over the Ore Diggers. So huge win for them.
And then Chuck, on the other side, Reggie Ratzlaff returns for Pueblo, and he's 100 yards, 3 scores, and ends up being a pretty important piece in a well-contested game by Mesa. I mean, Mesa, I think, is always going to play what we're going to consider to be those top few teams that have really kind of put themselves on that level in the RMAC. I feel like they can always punch with them. It's just, is their offense going to have enough? And Pueblo, once again, goes ahead, and they played a tough schedule early, Pueblo has. And, they're coming out of it with just one setback.
Yeah, no doubt. So good result there for them. How about back to the CIAA? K-Ferg, this might have been one of the more competitive, entertaining games of the whole weekend. Give us, I know a little bit of a tough one for some, but give us a little bit of lowdown on this game.
Well, let me tell you, I hedged my bets on this one. I'm going to cash out one way or the other. So, gosh. Well, I tell you, you just had 2 high-flying offenses going at each other. And, RJ Matthews at a Virginia State quarterback, first year, running the offense, does a really, really nice job, going with VSU. And really things sort of turned in the third quarter in this game when the Rams, we talk about 3 phases of the game. Well, there's 3 phases to special teams. And I tell you, the Rams just really screwed up all 3 phases. They fumbled the ball on punt return, and, they had a missed PAT that made the difference in this game, despite a very furious comeback, being down 2 scores, and kickoff just gave up too many yards and kickoff returns to VSU. And that was an area that they were struggling. It was an excellent game. I think when people saw that missed PAT, that was like the last touchdown that Winston scored. It was just, everybody just kind of threw their hands out. You just feel that the air just let out of the stadium at that point, because it was a really live atmosphere. So, but yeah, these are 2, this game and also the Virginia Union, John C. Smith, those 4 teams play each other this year, and basically is a round robin. So, certainly kudos to Virginia State, but man, it was an incredible game. It really was.
All right, let's go to the Lone Star. Angelo State gets another big win. Braden Fuller still not playing. We kind of didn't expect that. We don't really know what his status is. Did not play in this one, and I believe Angelo has a bye this coming week. And wait, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they play UTPB after that.
Yeah, I believe, yes, they have a week there and week gap in between that. And, Chuck, I watched a little bit of this game, and this was a close game in the middle. And then all of a sudden, Angelo just kind of broke away. And Caden Smith has stepped in at quarterback and done a respectable job for them and kind of gotten that offense. I'm not saying it's where Braden Fuller was, and we still don't know what his prognosis is, but gutty win for Angelo when they kind of had themselves tested there. And UTPB, Chuck, this was a close game also in the middle, and then they kind of took off. So both of these teams kind of showing why we have them, in the upper portion of our top 25, and the way that they took off in the back half of this football game and took care of business.
Yep, for sure. All right. Tony, we ranked Michigan Tech And then, Whit, you used a term on the NSIC show a couple of years ago, and I decided I'm going to use that anytime the occasion calls for it. The Huskies got peacocked.
Well, and it was also the welcome to the poll and catch you later, because that seems to happen with a lot of teams that make their way into the poll and then don't live up to the hype a week later. And that seems to happen a lot with some of these GLIAC teams the last couple of years. But yeah, Tech definitely fell victim to it. Darrell Overstreet Jr. had 3 second quarter touchdown passes. And that was enough for the Peacocks to be able to hold off Tech. I mean, Alex Bueno had a decent game, a touchdown running and another one throwing. But I think Tech's offense just came out flat. This is after 3 straight weeks of really not being stopped. They just did not look crisp in this game. Had a few untimely penalties, some drops. And, we talked extensively at different points of the season, especially on the GLIAC show, about not finishing drives. Tech had 2 chances inside UIU territory in the second half. One got inside the 10 with no points. And even if you came out flat in the first half, you better not be flat the whole game. You got to score when you get your chances, and Tech didn't do it. So despite winning the turnover battle +3, their offense just didn't have it. Barely 200 yards of offense for the Huskies in this one. Pretty disappointing outing for them.
Yeah, and then we kind of cautioned last week after Tiffin's really good showing at Ferris State that you got to move on from that, because, they have their conference schedule coming up. And, man, just really stubbed their toes coming out of the gate here with an unexpected loss at Ohio Dominican.
Well, Chuck, and one of the adages that you've always rings in my head that you use is sometimes you let a team beat you twice. And I think that might have been a little bit of what we saw here, where Tiffin, had a good run at Ferris, kept that game a little bit closer than maybe we all expected, and probably just didn't have the emotional mindset ready to go against Ohio Dominican. And on top of that, Ferris tends to be pretty physical, so they might have been a little bit beat up as well. But, I don't want to take away from the job Ohio Dominican did in this game either. They cashed in on their scoring opportunities when they had them. Tiffin kind of struggled, and similar to Tech, they had 3 trips inside Ohio Dominican territory with no points, and they turned the ball around down. So it's not like they were punting and playing field position. They were trying to score and couldn't do it. And Marquand Rucker had a nice game for ODU in this game, 112 yards and a score. And I think that was the difference, Chuck, is that Ohio Dominican ran the ball really well. And so when they did throw it, they were averaging almost 11 yards an attempt in the pass game. So they didn't throw for a ton of yards, but because they were so committed to the run game and had been effective with it, when they did throw it, they were highly effective. So, great win for Ohio Dominican, and the GMAC is barely begun, and it's already topsy-turvy.
For sure. That's a good comment there, too, because it's not like ODU comes out of nowhere. They've had success in this league. They've been a good football team. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, I just wanted to mention, too, like ODU, several of their starters have been there for some time. I mean, so that's another thing that's kind of an X factor to me, is that like the quarterback has been there, got quite a bit of experience in big games like this. So I think those things really matter too in something like this and rising to the occasion.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right, K-Ferg. All right, Whit, back to your home league. The Dragons, man, we've been kind of a little bit hot and cold with them, a little bit up and down. Do they belong in the top 25? Do they not? And then they take a loss to Wayne State.
Yeah, and Jack Strand's looked great so far, but I mean, we've talked about it. They have played a lower schedule. They really have. There's no way around it. And Wayne State kind of woke up out of their coma that they've been in, and played their best football of the year. Dawson Forgy, running back right there, 31 totes for over 220 yards and 2 scores, and they just ran the ball at Moorhead. And Moorhead is they had some challenges first game of the season, slowing down the run. And more importantly, to Wayne's credit, they held Jack Strand at 22 of 55 with 2 picks in this. So in an offense that throws a lot of bubbles and a lot of underneath, that's a pretty bad number for him. So kudos to Wayne. And on the other side, to indicate how things are going in Bemidji, I threw that game on this morning. They didn't fumble the kickoff, but they did fumble the first offensive play.
Oh, wow.
And Augustana scored one play later on a QB run from 20 yards. And it was like, okay, we're a kickoff and 2 plays in, and it's already 7-0 Augustana. And Augustana then actually, for the first time this year, I felt that they were really good in the run game, in a game where I felt like they were going to be challenged. Ryan Kinney right there, 23, goes over for 100 yards for them, and they just rolled right here. But it does kind of lead to the other thing that we've been kind of leading up to, guys, which is we felt like Bemidji State was maybe had a standing 8 count after the Sioux Falls game, and right now it's hard not to feel like they're playing for a 500 season at this point at best, because they're not losing games now; they're losing them in this kind of fashion.
Pretty shocking, really, because this is a team that's been playing after Thanksgiving the last couple of years, and
right.
I know, Whit, you knew that they were probably going to have some struggles, but to see where they're at is kind of shocking.
Yeah, that's a little different than losing games versus this game. I want to say Chuck was 35 goose right in the middle of the football game, and that speaks to that. So yeah.
Northeast 10, that's a league we don't get to talk about a whole lot, but Franklin Pierce gets a nice win over Bentley. I think the takeaway here is what this possibly means for the Northeast 10 conference race, because, with New Haven reclassifying and moving on to, the Northeast Conference out of the Northeast 10, it really does kind of leave a big hole there, and you kind of figure, well, who's going to combat for that kind of top spot? And naturally, we assume it's probably going to be Bentley and Assumption that are battling out for that. And Bentley's just really had a hard time getting going here at the start of the season. And now Franklin Pierce, they have looked really good. They're 2-1. They have the really good performance against a solid Slippery Rock team. And all of a sudden, they start to look like the team that really could compete in the Northeast 10 this year. This result here really makes the Franklin Pierce and Assumption game coming up this weekend very interesting within that league. So a few things going on there that we did not expect coming into the season.
No doubt about it.
Back to the MIAA, Whit, the Mules get a win on the board, and Central Oak gets kind of a close win, I guess you'd say, over Washburn.
Yeah, the Central Oak game was interesting because they have over 500 yards of offense, only gave up a little over 200, and a shockingly different, difference between the two. But they're down 28-24, Chuck, mid-third quarter in this game. And, we don't have any Jet Huff. We've got Clayton Creasy, who threw for almost 300 for Central Oak, but at the same time, threw the ball to the other team twice. So some of that kicks in, but UCO was able to go for over 200 yards, both in the run game and the pass game, which I think is a positive thing for them. This game just ended up being closer than maybe they were looking to have it. And I'm not sure if I take too much out of it, because maybe, that offense is going to be not missing as much of a beat as we thought. But let's see when they play some of the top teams in the MIAA after Jet Huff. And on the other side, Jordan Pachot, we thought really kind of got that offense going the previous Thursday night, Tony, when you were at that game.
Definitely.
When he threw for 400 here and had them clicking, I wasn't surprised. I thought maybe they would still play both, but I can't knock Lambeau for doing this, because you got a chance to see him up close. That offense is humming with him.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where obviously Dylan Amoro's got a certain skill set that Pachot just kind of doesn't, and yet it's almost as though even they're a little less dynamic, they're harder to defend. I don't know how that juxtaposition works. I guess it's one of those two things can be true at the same time type of deals. But yeah, I mean, Pueblo had a much harder time slowing them down as the game wore on, and Pachot got more series and more series. And like we all talked about last week, they had first and goal at the 3 with a chance to win that game. That would have been the time, I thought, to bring Amoro back in and try and run it. But, it was kind of alludes to some of the things that Ferg was talking about earlier, where sometimes when you get in tight, the passing only makes it a little bit harder to score when you're not as physical. But Yeah, I mean, obviously Peugeot threw for, what'd you say you threw for? Four plus in this one. I mean, that's a big day, and that's kind of what we're used to seeing from the Mules. So this could be a bit of a get right situation for them, and we'll see what they do in the weeks to come.
Ferg, I'm going to give you a layup. Did you pick him up in fantasy?
No, I got some other options.
Oh,
I actually picked up the quarterback
Ferg's
from
big time in him. Okay, well,
Yeah, right.
No, I picked up the quarterback from Clarion.
That's a good pickup. That's a good pickup.
Yeah.
If we mention you on the show, that means you might be worth getting picked up in D2 fantasy.
That's right. That's right.
I just like how Ferg's big time enough that he doesn't need a guy who throws for 4 bills.
Yeah, right.
Just dismissive of it. I got other options.
I'm all right.
I'm good.
Okay. I'm good.
Let's stay in the MIAA here.
It's a short sample size.
Well, let's stay in the MIAA for just another minute. UNK gets another win.
We've kind of been talking about this team, Chuck, and I've kind of cautious optimism. And I mean, apparently MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy was excited enough that he had to go see him in person over there on the right. But I love Isaiah Harris. I saw him back in the spring at a spring game at Sioux Falls, and he's got more moves than a jar of worms, and he is a tough running back. And he ran for 24 carries for 270 and 4 scores in this one. And if they can establish that run game and also be able to be opportunistic in the pass game with the physicality that they have and the way that they play defense, they're going to be a tough out in the MIAA. So I was impressed with a win like this against an Emporia team who didn't allow Minot to run the ball at the beginning of the season. So, kind of out-toughs them here. I don't know exactly what to make of it just yet, Chuck, but I think there's some promise with Kearney.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm in the same place, but I don't know what their ceiling is yet, but I don't think that they're there yet. So it's an exciting team to keep an eye on for the rest of the season.
By the way, something I meant to mention, Reed, I appreciate you bringing it up. Jack Pospisil, by the way, I just said his name perfectly. I thought I'd point that out, which I normally don't. For Central Mo in the previous slide, who went for 250, he was out and didn't play, and they still threw for 400 yards. So kind of speaks to how that offense is rolling. How did that come up?
Oh gosh, that's funny. Another defense optional game here featuring New Mexico Highlands, but boy, they sure have had some thrilling contests. Another Jeffrey Jones show. He went for well over 200 yards again, and the Cowboys are 3-0, if you can believe that. It's fun to see. So we'll see. They've got some real tough competition coming up ahead of them, but they go to 3-0. Got another really thrilling win. I think it might be the second week in a row, and it was in overtime, or came right down to the end. So yeah, some thrilling action there in the RMAC. And what bring us to close of this segment with a little bit of a discussion, because I want to bring up a couple of comments here about Central Washington. I think this might be kind of right in there. We felt that West Texas was on the right track, right? We'd seen some good performances out of them. This was never a game.
Yeah, this was the game that I was hoping was going to be over before midnight, but they kicked real late for this, and I was really impressed with how they got after West Texas right from the jump. I mean, this was a one-sided football game very early, and what we're seeing here, I think, is we have a little bit of, you can't just ignore how their offense has looked in years past, which is, I'm going to say, play kind of ugly football and do just good enough to win because our defense and we're going to be more physical.
Yeah.
Well, that's not who they are this year. They're able to go ahead and hit shots down the field. And with them being able to be much more explosive and feeling compelled to throw the ball more has changed them. And I mean, this West Texas team, Chuck, like you mentioned, RJ Martinez and company, this is a very potent offense. And for them to do what they did here, I thought was extremely impressive. Now, what was asked a moment ago about maybe them making the top 10, Problem is, if everybody in front of you is winning, it's kind of hard to move on up. The teams that lost in the top 25 were in the bottom portion of the top 25. So I think that, I think everybody, if they didn't have them on alert, has them on alert now, because they still haven't played the top teams in the Lone Star yet.
Yeah, for sure. And we know that West Texas isn't one of those teams, but we did feel that they were trending, in the right direction. So, for the Cats to really make no doubt about this at all was pretty impressive. Now, Whit, Central Washington likes to play these evening games for them on the West Coast, which means by the time they finish, it's about midnight. When they wrap their games, that means I need a second dinner by midnight when we're kind of catching the end of these games. Got any ideas for me?
Chuck was spending all afternoon coming in with the lead in on that. I like that. By the way, little known fact, Boss's Pizza is open till 4 a.m. in every market that they're in. That
is a little known fact.
They appeal to the college crowd.
Beautiful.
That I'm all about it. Yeah, that's great. I mean,
I'm here for that.
Yeah, because sometimes you go to bed at 10 and you wake up at midnight 30 and you can't sleep and you say, but pizza sounds good. Well, Chuck, that's things that fat people say. You wouldn't know anything about that. But, as we go ahead and look at more about Bosses, once again, you want to open up a place where you can be up till 4 a.m. Obviously there's franchising opportunities and Bosses wants us to get that word out. Now, you guys know me well enough that I always got to give you some choices, maybe a little survey here. You're going to see which way the room leans on this one. We've got a super pepperoni pizza, marinara sauce, pepperoni, mozz cheese, and more pepperoni, versus, would you guys rather have the Bossage, which is marinara sauce, spicy sausage, we're going to make that count, pork sausage, Italian sausage, and mozzarella cheese. Which one would you favor? Ferg, you're always my food go-to guy. What do you got for which way do you lean?
Gosh, you're making me so hungry right now looking at these. These both look great. I'm gonna go with pepperoni. I really do like pepperoni, but they both look good.
Fair enough. I found out at Boss's that they have the pepperoni that's got that little bit of zip to it, because when Brandon and I tried to do that ultra fat person challenge, my mouth was burning after I tried to eat all of that, and he can vouch. But Chuck, which direction would you go here?
I think I go the Bossage here.
Chuck, I'm with you. Other than answering yes, meaning I would like both, because I would kind of like to have one in one hand, one in the other, but that's kind of just how I do this. It looks like Bossage is winning in the comments from what I'm seeing.
It looks like it. There's a few for the super pepperoni, but I think the Bossage is ahead.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't had anybody just say like plain cheese. But anyway, Tony, which way are you going?
So this is my where I become a pizza snob. It depends on the type of sausage. So. Okay. I worked in an Italian restaurant when I was in high school, and they made their own homemade Italian sausage. And if it's something akin to that, then I'm Bossage all day. If it's maybe not that, then I don't know. So I'm not sure what the guys at Bosses are using, but if they're making their own sausage, then I'm rolling with that.
So it's like ground with fennel and all that good stuff.
100%. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I agree with everything he just said. And, I was already leaning towards the Bossage, if we're going to be really honest there. But stay tuned, guys. You never know what's next in the Bosses promo part of the show.
All right. Well, on to a review of the top 25. That was our top 25 heading into the weekend. I think we already alluded to it a couple of times. Everyone down to 16 either won or had the weekend off. And then things got kind of crazy there towards the end. So why don't we go to the next one? I'll have a little bit of a discussion about who's potentially out, who's potentially in. And we don't know because the votes aren't in yet. But Tech and Mines, who we only just recently moved in. Fort Hayes, who had been in, then was out, and then back in. And then we brought Johnson C. Smith in, I think, 2 weeks ago. So, it's possible that some of those teams may still remain ranked. We're not saying that they're all out. But assuming a couple of them fall out, we've got a couple that could be on their way in.
Yeah, and I think the team at the top there on the left, they were renting. But the other ones, as we go ahead and we kind of look at this, I think Fort Hays is the one that I could hold on to. You lose at Pitt State. You take a look at the fact that they've notched a win, at Pueblo like they have. I mean, who else on that side of the page has got some things that they can hang on to that extent? Now the Golden Bulls down there,
they
beat Valdosta, so there's a little bit of that canceling out process here. But guys, and we're thinking that you could see 4 or 5 teams move on out because they were in the lower portion of that top 25 Chuck alluded to. Now, obviously, 8 teams aren't going to make it in because that'd be a math thing. But which guys? I mean, I personally think Wingate is the obvious one for me at this point.
Yeah.
Who else? Like Ferg, who else do you see? I'm going to give you next pick, Ferg. Who do you think is next in line?
Man, the CIAA is as good as it's been at the top end. I mean, Virginia State's losses to an FCS team, and I mean, they're as hot as anyone right now out of this list to me.
Yeah, and that's one that jumped out to me for what it's worth, and we're not trying to have our own submissions for what we do for the top. I included them in mine today when I sent it to Chuck. Now, Tony, we're used to talking about Northwood and about their relationship with Saginaw and how they've been. Now we're in a top 25 discussion. Do you think that they have done enough to make that, or I mean, we take a look in the same region? Do we look at, or in conference, do we look at Findlay? What are your thoughts?
So as I sit here, my initial instinct is going to lean more towards Findlay versus Northwood for the simple fact that we've seen Findlay either in playoff races or in the bracket in recent years enough to where we know kind of what they are. Northwood's kind of earning their way back. At the same time, you look at their 3-0, but their 3 wins are over teams that have combined to win 1 game so far this year. So that's a little bit tough. Now, they did beat Thomas More this past weekend, Thomas Moore's other 2 losses were against Division I opponents, and yet at the same time, Northwood wasn't particularly impressive in that game. So, Wingate's the obvious choice for me, and then I think Findlay has a nod, and I still have a little bit of a soft spot for Delta State, just with the brand of physicality they tend to play with. Even though I think we're all kind of aligned that the Gulf South maybe just isn't what it was historically, I still think that's a team that can line up and play with just about anybody.
Chuck, I'm coming to you next. This was thrown in. Maybe I'm just being dismissive, but that loss a week ago to Mars Hill, I can't quite forget that. What are your thoughts, buddy?
Well, it's not like that was a disgraceful loss. Mars Hill's a winning football team. It was on the road. They launched a furious comeback. So I have to reevaluate Carson Newman. I don't have an answer yet for you, Joe, whether I will, but I definitely am giving them another look for sure.
Chuck, with the remaining teams that we haven't spoken of yet, we've got Edward Waters, we've got Valdosta, we've got Kearney. Do you think any of those have a strong case, or how do you see that grouping?
Well, and that's where you kind of get into some of the other nuances there too. Like Dykstra mentioned that, if you're considering who's in, who's out, when you look at like Fort Hays and Kearney, you've got a result there that you have to consider.
Yeah, sure.
The Edward Waters loss to, an FCS team. That's a bad FCS team. So did I expect a little better? Probably. But I generally discard FCS results when it comes to rankings, unless it's a win. We do that with the regional rankings. So, that's a team I'm looking at. I would go here with Wingate is just such an established brand to me that, I know what I'm getting with Wingate. In terms of just recognizing some teams that are playing their way into the conversation, I'm not ready to go there yet with Clarion. They're 4-0 as they've played really good football. It's an impressive 4-0. Kind of need to see them get a signature win before we would really put them in. But those opportunities are out there for them.
And I think that's a very good point. Is there's some teams that are knocking on the door. Maybe their past few seasons still cloud our judgment. Like we don't want to just have a knee-jerk reaction and put somebody in.
Yeah.
But I think we're moving towards the end of this month, and after about a month of football, I always like to think now we can start looking truly at someone's resume just this year, because we have enough data that we don't want to have too little to go by leading up to that point.
Sure. All right. Well, we'll turn the page and start looking at what is coming up this weekend. So this is sort of our games of interest, or the undercard, not the games we're going to pick. But walk us through here, Whit. Anything you want to kind of throw out for some additional discussion?
Yeah, and I mean there's some confusion I know in the past where when we don't call them in the Super 7, does that mean they're not as good at games? Well, we got Watchtower Harding on here.
Mhm.
So
all
that's
gonna
a
pick
game
Harding.
that's going to get a ton of interest. Well, the reality of it, one team's not playing near the brand of football they had in the past few years, and the other team hasn't blinked. Now, as we look at some of the rest of this, I take a look naturally at Moorhead and Duluth, because Moorhead went into Duluth and beat them in overtime a season ago. And talking with some of the Duluth people after their game at Sioux Falls, that's all they were talking about. Is they were looking and they were shocked that Moorhead lost, because I mentioned them, by the way, they lost to Wayne today, and they said, what? And so Jack Strand gets rid of the football very quickly, and a lot of those things that Duluth does real well, he's able to kind of get rid of some of that because he makes it a 7-on-7 football game. I think the other side, though, is that Moorhead's going to struggle to stop Duluth's running game. But I threw Ohio Dominican Walsh on here, guys. It's kind of a low-key one to keep an eye on. I mean, Ohio Dominican had a nice win that we talked about earlier. Walsh is kind of quietly taking care of their business and a fairly solid team. So there's some games like that, Chuck, that stood out to me. Tony or Ferg, and does any of the rest kind of jump out at you?
Well, I always love a good former GLIAC matchup like ODU and Walsh. And like I mentioned earlier, the GMAC is, when you've got 4 teams that are still unbeaten in that league, Findlay doesn't surprise anybody. But when the other 3 are Northwood, Ohio Dominican, and Walsh, that's not a conversation we're typically having. So
Right.
I think a game like this absolutely deserves to be on this list. To be honest with you, the Southern Arkansas Henderson State game is one that I'm kind of keen on, because I think those are 2 teams that, Henderson's made the playoffs recently. Southern Arkansas has really been trying to get themselves onto that next tier up where they maybe break through and grab a 7-line or an 8-line in the bracket. So that's a game that I actually have a lot of interest in seeing who comes out on top in that one.
Absolutely. Well, Chuck,
right,
we're
well,
ready to let's move to that next group, and we've got a brand new slide for the
my
show.
Wow, look at that.
Now, our good friend John Dykstra, he and I chatted this afternoon. This is a Dykstra production, so if you like it, you thank me for bringing it on. If you don't like it, blame him for his graphic.
This is pilfered straight from the MIAA show.
Well, I was going to say some small changes, and we go ahead and we can kind of see the week that was. So we never have to, and Dykstra's going to keep track of all this, which I'm all for. But as we take a look across here, guys, Whit 6-1 again. I mean, are we serious with this? Ferg, as you've mentioned, Ferg, I'm not one to gloat. But guys, 78%. I mean, what are we doing here, Ferg? And Ferg, you were over 50%, so it must have been a crazy week.
Hey, it's not how you start; it's how you finish.
You better hope so. Well, Chuck, you and I both took Sioux Falls, and by halftime, we were regretting that decision. But Chuck, these are really actually a lot of coin flip games. And for those who tune in and they look at what games we pick, I think this has been a challenging year for that, and it will continue to be. And you guys will see that when we get to our 7 that we go through here in a moment. Let's
All right,
start
well,
on off.
why don't we do that? Let's get rid of that. Let's go into our first.
Did I mention I'm doing well in the pick'em? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I like this week. This is
All
great.
right. So, I think we've got a really good slate of games this week. We'll start off in the PSAC here with California going on the road for the first time in a very long time. They had the way the schedule landed for them, and with playoffs, they've played something like 10 or 11 games in a row at home. They finally hit the road. Now, regardless of what you think of this matchup, guys, I'll restate something I mentioned last week. Slippery Rock at home at night, damn near unbeatable.
Mhm.
They've won something like 34 in a row at home when they kick off at 6 o'clock or later. So, really tough spot here for the Vulcans. For that reason, Whit, I'll just start off the pick'em. I don't want to throw you off here, but I'll just start.
No,
off the
you're good.
For that reason, and with Slippery Rock, I think having a new direction at quarterback, I am going to go here with the Rock at home in this one.
Tony, how do you see it, buddy?
Yeah, same thing. That was the thing that I think when I was trying to figure out what my thoughts were for this game was the fact that Slippery Rock has, even though it's a new quarterback and how they're trying to run things this year, they've already shown that they've established more offensive balance than Cal has. And I just think that ability to throw the ball and be multiple on offense is going to be the difference. I just don't know if Cal can score enough points to keep up, especially on the road at the Rock.
Fair enough. Ferg, which direction are you heading?
Well, Cal hasn't won at Slippery Rock since 2009, so that's a big deal.
Ferg bringing facts. Here we go.
Yeah, right. Look at that.
Also, kind of some of what y'all have said. I really like what Slippery Rock's doing, especially on offense as well. And I hope Cal saves some of them points against Lockhaven for this week. So I'm going to go with the Rock as well.
Ferg doing research before the show. That's completely against the rules. Not supposed to be bringing facts in like that. We're supposed to be go on the top of our head. I think I think the way this year has begun with the Rock, the fact that they're still at 3-0, and they had stumbled a little bit, but DeJuan Owens, when he came on in and has kind of woken them up, I think, a little bit offensively, and they get a good defense. So I feel like this gave them a chance to kind of get a lot of that youth and experience, some good reps. And as a result, I like the Rock in this one. I thought about Cal quite a bit. There's times where I watch Cal and I go, well, why'd you do that? And there's just moments where I feel like they could be better, but they just haven't gotten there. I wouldn't be shocked if they win this game, but I'm taking the Rock.
No, to be fair to Cal, before we move off of that, a lot of things that we said about Slippery Rock also do apply to California.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of newness coming into this year. They're young in a lot of spots. They were kind of unproven, a little unsure in a lot of spots. They have gotten to 3-0, and they have been able to learn about themselves and get better through that and still win football games. And the same for Slippery Rock as well. So, yeah, I do think this is a toss-up game.
Next one here. I tell you guys, after watching Northwest opening week at Mankato, wasn't sure how often we're going to have in the pick'em. And since that time, they've rebounded very nicely under Coach Mack. And now you've got Doral going against his old home in Maryville. I think this is kind of an interesting matchup here. Tony, are you buying with me, or do you got all Central over?
I hate these games. God. Every time the Northwest is in a game, there are like 3 or 4 teams where I'm automatically going to get screwed. It's Northwest, Ashland, and they're in later. So thanks a lot, Whit. Appreciate it.
Yes.
I tell you what, man. I know Central Oak put up a ton of yards against Washburn and really actually did dominate that game, and yet they still let Washburn hang around. And I'm sorry, all due respect to the Ichabods, they're not Northwest. And even though Northwest isn't what we've expected them to be over the last handful of years, I think they might be sneaky at this point, especially playing at home. And they're going to play real defense, which, outside of Pitt State, I don't know how much of that UCO is really seen yet this year. Oh God, I'm gonna take the Bearcats. It just kills me. They always end up hosing me somehow, but I'll go with them here.
Ferg, tougher game than maybe preseason stuff would have given us those thoughts, but no Jet Huff. How do you feel about this one?
Man, I think the thing that concerns me about Northwest is I'm just wondering where the offense is going to come from. Because if they got the defense, I think can slow down UCO, but man, I'm just really concerned about the offense. And is that a matter of just Missouri Southern playing up or them playing down? At the same time, UCO to me reminds me of like a 500 horsepower Dodge Charger. It's all wheel spin. You can't hook up and go. 500 yards of offense, man. I'm expecting a bigger result than that. So I think in the end, I think UCO might be just a little bit more. They're bringing a little bit more to the table. So I'm going to go with them. But I'm like Tony, man. I kind of agonize over this pick.
We can hear that, Chuck. Which
well, I'm not going to labor on it quite as much as the other guys, but I struggle with this too, and I think I'm probably something like my record with picking UCO games is probably something like 2-10 over the last 2 years or something like that. I feel like Northwest is actually maybe a little further ahead of where I thought they were going to be. And the Missouri Southern game from last weekend doesn't scare me all that much. I think Missouri Southern's, Atiba Bradley does not get enough credit for what he does, with that program. It is a very difficult place to win in the toughest and deepest league in Division II. I think they do a great job there. They punch above their weight. So that doesn't scare me a whole lot. I think Northwest is actually a little further ahead of where I thought they were going to be. And I don't know that UCO is quite where I think they can be. So I guess for those reasons, I'm going to go with the Bearcats.
Oh boy. I was coming into this thinking, you know what? They're all just going to go with UCO, and I'm going to be left to take the Bearcats here and just kind of have some fun with that. I agree wholeheartedly, Chuck. I think Northwest has come along a bit here, and I think Coach Mack, he has shown me in the past that he can win a game like this. When he was at Wayne, when he went into Mankato and went into Duluth. I'm going to take Northwest here, and I tell you right now, Central Oak's going to have this all over their locker room. But you know what?
Just your pick will be in their locker room.
Yeah, of course. But then they can say, you know what? He's getting 3 out of every 4 right. I don't know. Yeah. But let's move to the next one here. This is one that kind of a sneaky good game. UNC Pembroke, who may be still a team that we think can be the champion for Conference Carolinas. They're going to Valdosta. I don't know if we really know what Valdosta is at this point.
Nope.
They've had
no idea.
They've had a blah game. They've had a bad game. They've had a decent game against a not decent opponent. So, Ferg, I'm putting it on you first.
Well, Pembroke has definitely gotten a little bit more seasoned for them to be a bit of a trendy pick here because, I was really concerned about what that quarterback spot, who's going to run the offense. But one thing about Mark Hall is he's always going to have like multiple options to distribute the ball. And that's what makes, I think, his offense is so fun. But he's got to go on the road to do it at Valdosta, which is not a friendly place to do it. And so I think the Blazers are going to have just enough to get by Pembroke in this one.
Yeah, I think we all feel like it's going to be a good game. Tony, how do you see it?
Yeah, this game scares me with Valdosta coming off a bye to kind of, figure some things out. But there's just something that sticks in my craw about just not knowing what they are whereas Pembroke has kind of shown us what they are, and that's a team that can beat teams that aren't well prepared or aren't playing well as a collective. And I don't know if Valdosta is really going to be able to pull all that together here, even though they had the week off. So I'm going to take a flyer and take Pembroke.
Chuck, how do you see this one?
Yeah, man, Valdosta State games are just going to be so hard to pick for the rest of this year.
They'll probably be in the pick 'em every damn week now.
I know, yeah. So that it just feels like it's going to be very difficult. Yeah, I don't know that Valdosta is a particularly difficult place to play. It's not necessarily a great home field advantage. So I think Pembroke is fine in that regard, but I do still think playing at home for Valdosta is enough of an advantage not have to go on the road that I will take the Blazers, but not with a lot of confidence.
I was pleased with how they did in their last contest. I thought they kind of got that offense out and going. And at the same time, Council Allen, who is a slot for them from back when Jermaine Jackson first took that job, he's been dinged up. He had played his first game and caught 5 balls. I think that he's the kind of guy who can really help them in that offense because he can spread the field a little bit. And I feel like Valdosta with 2 weeks to prepare. I like him in this, but this is definitely a game to keep an eye on, folks. Ashland at Northwood. Tony, this one, talk about games that are hard to pick.
I feel you, Tony. I feel you.
Well,
Tony,
look,
we're starting with you.
Yeah, so I understand. Which, by the way, I'm noticing that even though you've got this giant lead, you always pick last.
And by the way, he's not joking. I do have a giant lead.
I'm curious. I'm curious about how that impacts things. But all right, nevertheless.
Well, if I go first, then you guys will just copy my answers because I'm getting all these right. So
yes, something stinks about that.
I think that was from the comments, but anyway.
So look, like we talked about earlier, right? Northwood, awesome start, and I have no doubt that program is moving in a positive direction. But again, the teams that they've played, I believe, are a combined 1-9 or 1-8 on the season, or something like 1-10. It ain't good, whatever it is. And Ashland, this is one of those spots where Ashland should be the better team. They should be able to go on the road and win, and they just always seem to just hose us. I'm taking them anyway, just because I think that's ultimately, when I look at what Northwood's body of work is and who they've done it against, I just haven't seen them beat anybody quality yet. I think Northern's getting there. I think Saginaw is going to probably prove to be better than what they're showing so far. But man, 10-6 over Thomas More. I don't know. I just think Ashland's the better team, top to bottom, and hopefully they'll prove that out over 60 minutes here on Saturday.
Chuck, which way are you heading on this?
Yeah, Northwood's a team that's sort of developing a knack for just finding a way. They've been winning different types of football games, but I think Ashland's defense is the difference maker here. They're really, really tough against the run. They're good at getting pressure on the quarterback. I think they'll probably have no real difficulty taking the run game away from Northwood. They're not running the ball especially well, and I think that's going to force the Timberwolves to be pretty one-dimensional. I think this is low scoring, and I think it's close, but I do like Ashland.
Ferg, you're shaking your head yes. Are you going with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the this feels like it's going to be a pretty ugly game, and that to me is definitely going to favor Ashland. Fun fact or fun stat is Northwood's turnover margin is like really, really high. 2.5 plus 2.5. So I mean, I'm curious to see if they can replicate that in this game. Because if they do, they will certainly have a really good chance. But
probably will.
But I am going to go with Ashland.
Now that we've all taken Ashland, and Witt's going to be contrarian, I guarantee you Northwood will go plus 4. They'll go plus 4 in the turnover margin.
We know that Ashland will call him out if he goes contrarian.
They love me. What are you talking about? They love me. Now, I agree with what Tony was going with. I just feel like Ashland's kind of a different level. That Northwood's not there just yet, and Ashland plays. I always feel they play a little tougher campaign, and they should win games like this.
Yep.
I'm going to take Ashland for that reason. I don't have a whole lot more to it than that. I just feel like this is one of those games we expect for them to win. Sioux Falls kind of putting Humpty Dumpty back together after their loss to Duluth. They go and visit Minnesota State Mankato, a place that they won last year. And I'll tell you, in a time where I didn't give them much of a chance to go win that football game on the road. Mankato's coming off of playing Jamestown, and they won that in the first half. And this just feels like it's too easy. You just take Mankato here. Ferg, I know that you have some strong ties with this club. Where are you going?
Well, I look at this in the context of the Duluth lens, because you have Duluth, and then I feel like you have like this second tier of teams right now, and at the top of that second tier, to me, is Mankato, but I think USF may have a little bit more success than what they had, on Saturday. So I think it's gonna be a tougher game. But I still do like Mankato in this one.
Chuck, it almost feels like USF's coming into this with, almost like they know that they're the underdog clearly after this last weekend. How do you see this one playing out?
This is one where there's just no way I'm going to be able to move past the recency bias.
Sure.
It just was not a good showing for the Cougs last weekend. And I'm going to go with the Mavs here, Whit.
Yeah. Tony, how do you see it?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And as much as, again, we talked last week about how the Northern Sun is like the home of somebody goes out and has a great game, and then the next week they lay an egg, and then after they lay the egg, they go and they beat somebody they're not supposed to the week after. I still just have a hard time seeing it, so I'm taking Mankato as well.
There's a part of me that almost feels like Mankato would have rather seen Sioux Falls play them close, instead of now Mankato is like wearing the favorite big time coming into this game, where they weren't going to be leading up to this point, where it was going to be thought it was a little bit more of a closer to an even matchup. But a year ago, Sioux Falls goes ahead and finds a way to win that game. I feel like they've got the puncher's chance with Cam Dean and so forth. Sioux Falls had some injuries defensively. I'm not real sure if they're going to be able to hold up well enough at the line of scrimmage in a game where I felt that was what hurt them in the Duluth game as well. I'm taking Mankato also. Moving on along, Carson Newman 3-1, Wingate 3-0. Considering how Carson Newman just played, boy, this makes for a real interesting game. Ferg, how do you see it?
Yeah, interesting indeed. And, Wingate's probably looking for some payback for last season, too. And it's at home for them. I really have liked what both teams have done going into this season, especially like reestablishing their identities quite a bit. But in the end, I tend to sort of lean a little bit closer to the home team in a matchup. In this matchup, I did last year. I'm going to go with Wingate this time.
Tony, we've been talking well about Wingate, and it seems like inescapable that they're going to be not just in the top 28, 25, in my opinion, maybe, incomfortably, given the losses towards the bottom of the top 25. Do you see them being the clear favorite here, or how do you see this one?
I do see them as the clear favorite. This is going to sound silly. I almost would have rather that this game be at Carson Newman, just because in Super Region 2, it just always seems like the defense travels ideology seems to pay off well, and that's particularly true in the playoffs. And Wingate's one of those teams that tends to be somebody that punches tickets with that a lot. But with that said, I still think just the fact that they play a better brand of defense, I think, week in and week out, and that's kind of one of their hallmarks, is something I would hang my hat on here. So I do like the Bulldogs here.
Chuck, we've always said that Wingett's a very defensive team. Do you see that defense being good enough to win the day here?
When Carson Newman plays their best football, they can be very difficult to beat. We already talked about their offense a little bit, and I am very impressed with the scheme that they run. And I'll tell you guys, when you give that coaching staff another year or two to recruit the players that they want to build out for their offense, they could be pretty dangerous. But at this point, I do still think the Wingate defense, especially at home, is formidable. And I do like the Bulldogs here.
Well, and when we're taking a look at this game, we've got David asks, what are Wingate's signature wins so far this season? Now, they've only played 3 contests, but they beat UNC Pembroke the first game of the year. And I think that's not that's a bit of a measuring stick to see where you at, up or down. And so we had them right on the brink of being a top 25-ish kind of team. There's just some other teams that have had a chance to play teams where they've kind of catapulted past them. Wingate's been there the whole time. So I like Wingate's defense. I still just feel like I guess I don't trust Carson Newman to put it together for 2 straight games like this against top opponents. And if they do, then they're going to be ranked themselves.
Yep. Agreed.
So whoever wins this, I think, is getting in for sure. But I'm favoring Wingate here. I still feel like Wingate might be the best team in that conference.
Yeah, agree. All right. Well, that, I believe, brings us to the or is there one more game? One more game?
Us.
We got one more. All right. Let's roll through that, get our final picks. To the GLVC.
Indy and Truman State. Now, Truman State's 2-2, but has one FCS loss, if I remember correct. Yeah. This is always a battle. It seems like the 2 teams that are towards the top of that league. This one's at Truman. Tony, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I don't know, guys. These are 2 teams that you're correct with. They've kind of been at that top end of the GLVC for the last few years, and there were a couple of seasons where they played each other basically the last game of the year, and it ended up being a de facto play-in game to get into the bracket. UIndy seems to have had the better of that more often than not. And while I don't like the way UIndy just kind of let Findlay run all over them a couple of weeks ago, they've played pretty decent games outside of that, and they've done what they've supposed to do. Whereas I can't get past, Truman dropping that opener against Washburn. I get that was a month ago, but I don't know. That still sticks in my craw a little bit. And I just until I see Truman consistently play with and over UIndy, it's hard for me to pick against the Greyhounds here. So I'll take them.
Ferg, what was it, a few weeks ago? Truman beats Davenport, which I think is a pretty solid win. You think they have enough here to beat Indy?
I think it'll be close. I'm going to go with the Greyhounds.
Chuck, how do you see this one?
It's been very difficult for Truman to get over the UIndy hump, so to speak. They've been right there with them for the last several years in this league, but they just have been a very clear second place to UIndy. I don't think that this UIndy is kind of a vintage Greyhounds team. They're good. They're not quite. Yeah, they're not quite where they have been the last couple years. Not quite getting what I expected we'd see out of Gavin Sukup at quarterback. Not that that's all on him. They have some other problems, but they're not getting as much out of the offense as I expected. If Truman is going to get past this and they're going to get a win over UIndy and assert themselves as the team to beat in the GLVC, I feel like it has to be this year. I think they're playing good football. I like Dylan Hare at quarterback for them. I am going to go with Truman State to win this one. I think it's close. It should be a great battle, but I'm going to go with Truman State for the win here.
Chuck, I literally agree with everything you just said. Every bit of it. I feel like UIndy should win this game by 2 scores. but I don't think we've seen their ceiling this year. And we're not seeing it. And I just feel like Dylan Hare, I like what they can do offensively. I think they've played some tough games, tough teams. I like them to win here at home. I'm taking Truman.
All right. Good split in that one.
Well,
All right.
guys,
Well, that was
yeah.
game number 7 in the Super 7. Whit, as we bring this to a close, we are running up on an hour and a half, but I want to go through a couple of questions. We didn't get to do questions the last couple of weeks very much. So why don't you run through the thank yous, and I'll queue up some of the questions that we have.
Yeah, so we always want to go ahead for these paid platforms, whether it's Flow Sports, the RMAC and MIAA networks, allowing us to go ahead and use their material for us to go ahead and show some highlights, bring some extra color to the show, guys. And we're not going to, this isn't Sports Center, but we'd like to be able to give you guys some looks and familiarity with the different squads that we feel are really the ones that we want to shine the most light on. So, just kind of wanted to make quick mention of that. And Chuck, I'll let you go ahead and bring things on up from there, buddy.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and pull down the slides? We'll make our heads a little bigger because I know everybody wants that. Didn't tag a whole bunch of questions, but just a few that I think will be fun to run through. Pull this up just to say thank you for checking in, Ashland Football Highlights. I know who that is. I know who that is. Thank you for watching. Thank you for checking in. Glad to see you here. This just kind of made me laugh because I like the way John made his pick, Valdosta, but I don't know. I think that represents all of us. Like, I don't know, man. I'm going to go with him, but I don't feel great about it. Also, here was another one that he had mentioned. So way to shout out a couple teams from different leagues. Big weekend there for the state of Nebraska and all their teams getting big dubs.
Chuck, give me a one to step in here with
all their D2 teams.
Yeah, right. Caleb, need more Kutzlov. Okay, well, let's talk about this for a minute. We're not going to talk about every team who's in the top 5 or 10 every week. If you play a lower ranked team, probably not going to talk about you a whole lot. You just took care of business. To say that we need more love with them, well, I think Wesley's kind of got it right here.
Yeah,
they're rolling. They're in the top 5.
Yeah, we've been here with Harding. We've been here with Ferris. We've been here with lots of teams. If you're up there and you're beating teams you're supposed to beat, there isn't a whole lot to talk about. But we'll get to them. They've got big games coming up.
We also have them higher ranked than any other poll, so we're giving them love.
Sure.
Hey, I just want to mention we're not going to talk about Kutztown versus Shepherd. We're not going to talk about them versus Shippensburg. That's the next 2 games. So
right.
I mean, it's going to be wild.
Yeah, and that was something I didn't get to mention in the Clarion thing. I wouldn't frame it like this, but yeah, Shepherd's 0-3, very unfamiliar territory there for the Rams. So we'll see what kind of response they can come up with.
No doubt.
Craig was checking. Craig had a couple of good observations. He's talking about Franklin Pierce as a coach with LSC experience. A couple of different experiences. Russell Gaskamp is a head coach at Franklin Pierce. One of those jobs where you're not going to get a lot of mentions. You're not going to necessarily get a ton of love for what you're doing, but he's doing a really good job there. This is their only head coach they've had. Prior to that, guys, he was at Oklahoma Panhandle. Those of us who've been around for a while, I remember Panhandle State. That was one of those places where if you could get a win every year, we'd just be happy if they didn't go over. He had them at a point where they were getting 4 or 5 wins a year. Went to Franklin Pierce, it's kind of up there in New Hampshire. There's not a whole lot of Division II presence up there. It's beautiful up there, but it's not necessarily a college football hotbed. Coach Gaskamp's doing a really, really good job up there at Franklin Pierce.
Chuck, can I end the show with one last highlight? Chuck, you had a chance to go to a concert last night, Chuck.
Oh, well, that I did. I did.
And you know what? A lot of people on this show might not expect it. Chuck went to go and see a band called Slayer. And you know what? Chuck took some video. And if you don't know about this, oh, Chuck. Chuck, when I was getting that video into our deal, I was headbanging the whole time, and I thought, oh,
I'm a little too old to be throwing elbows in the circle pit these days, but being 140 pounds doesn't help either. But yeah, really good time. Lifelong rock and roll guy, lifelong metalhead, and we don't need to go into the whole detail there, but it was a unique opportunity. Very strange for me to spend a Saturday kind of disconnected from college football. That felt very, very weird, to be honest with you, but it was kind of a unique opportunity to see Slayer at the Hershey Park Stadium, which is right down the road from me. Is their only headline show in North America because they are quasi-retired. So yeah.
Chuck, really I think most of our audience thinks that we would be going to a James Taylor concert or some Linda Ronstadt or something.
I always get pegged as like a Dave Matthews kind of guy, and no shade to him, no disrespect to him, but that's not my jam at all. Lifelong heavy metal guy.
A, don't be fronting on Linda Ronstadt. And B, everybody really wants to know, does Bittner have a John Clayton ponytail hiding back there that just we don't get to see?
Wow, that was a good interesting reference. There you go.
Way back in the day.
There's a story there. This is beautiful.
So you old guys,
tune in next week. It sounds like
when I was in high school, I did the whole rock band thing. I've got guitars hanging on the wall over there, and we did the whole garage band thing. If you grew up in the 90s, there was a point where for boys, teenage boys, there was a popular hairstyle to grow your hair long on the top, and shave it all the way around the sides and the back, and do like a rat tail in the back.
Yeah.
I will just say that I'm really glad that we are not digital natives and didn't have cameras in our pockets at all times, because there's really no photographic evidence of that, but it did happen.
I believe that was known as the Dwayne Shinsis.
It's something like
yes, former basketball player with Florida. But Chuck, I wanted to make sure that we got that in because I'm a heavy metal guy as well. So I was when Chuck said he was going to see Slayer, I was wildly jealous. I haven't seen them in years, and they don't play. They're actually basically retired as a band and only do select shows like that. Chuck, that was pretty cool that you got a chance to go to that.
Sadly, my D2 football credentials did not get me backstage or anything like that. But
criminal.
Unacceptable on their part.
Awesome.
Always fun. We actually do enjoy sometimes letting you into our personal lives a little bit. It is fun to express ourselves, and we always appreciate that all of you who watch it, you appreciate when we try to be humorous and bring some other elements of that into the show. So good way to end the show. Thanks for mentioning that, Whit. And I think with that said, we'll call this a show. Remember, throughout the week, top 25 on Monday, players of the week on Tuesday, columns and podcasts all week long, news all week long. And then we'll be back here next Sunday night to recap week 4. And before you know it, guys, we'll be talking about playoffs and rankings and the whole deal. So we are just getting started for this season. Excited to keep it going. And we'll see everyone back here next week.